Here in Los Angeles, you're going to hear a lot of people in the animation industry wanting to pitch their own show idea or their own feature film idea to studios. To many people in this industry, it's their dream. And if you manage to sell your idea to a studio, great. But a rejected pitch does not mean failure. And let me talk about the benefits of pitching an idea, even if you don't sell it. Because at the end of the day, pitching by itself is an art form. Hey guys, it's Toniko Pantoja, and today I'd like to talk about the topic of pitching to studios. If you're trying to pitch a movie, a show, a production for streaming content, or a major studio, I think there's some things that I would love to shed light on regarding pitching in general. Let's say you have an idea for a good show or a good feature film, and you want to get that made. Maybe it's a good idea to pitch it to studios so you can get the budget, the resources, and the support to make that thing come to life. And most of you who want to be a showrunner or have their own production that's heavily funded, I'm sure that's a dream for many of you. And a win-win scenario for you would be your project to get greenlit, further into development, and eventually into an official production. There's a lot of workshops and resources online that you can find about how to pitch a show, how to make a successful pitch Bible, how to make that perfect pitch on how to get that show made. Now, I'm not going to talk about that, because there's so many different stories about how people got their show idea or their movie idea made or even approved for production. You could be talking to the right person at the right time at the right place, or you could have an amazing pitch, an amazing idea, but pitch it to the wrong person who sees nothing of value. So in this video, I'm going to talk about good reasons why you should pitch your idea even if the project doesn't get greenlit or made. Yes, there's advantages to that, and why it's not a good idea to pitch your idea to studios. So first of all, let me talk about the benefits of pitching your idea to a studio. I've pitched multiple times, and of course, nothing moved forward. But one of the benefits that I got out of, let's say, pitching an idea to a studio is that it helped me improve my own salesmanship skills. Like when I pitch, I'm thinking about why it should be made, why audiences would love it, and how do I sell that idea quickly and concise without being lost in all the minute details. Because when you're pitching your story or your idea, it's so easy to get lost in the subtle parts or the really not so big parts of your project, but what the project entails. That's why there's something called the elevator pitch, where, imagine you're in an elevator with an executive, and in that elevator ride, you sell your idea. You say your idea, it's about this character that's trying to get this character, and then you say, it's kind of like this show meets this show. And whatever you need to say that's important, but quickly. To get the person hooked and interested, and how to present yourself quickly. But you're not being a salesman for your idea, you're also being a salesman about yourself. Like, why should you be the one to lead this project? Or why are you important enough for this project? And I think being able to practice your salesmanship skills while, selling yourself kind of builds that confidence, that self-esteem. The next one I want to talk about is that it's easier for you to nail down the core idea or the core element of your idea. First of all, pitching is hard. And if you've never pitched before, and if you're trying to pitch your show for the very first time or pitch in general for the first time, it's hard. You're going to screw up and you're going to be raising eyebrows. It'll happen. But over time, the more you pitch, the more you get better at just finding a good summary of your project, the core idea of your project. So when you revisit it or when you pitch it again, you're much faster and much more deliberate on that. I think personally this is combined with the idea of pitching to others while at the same time fleshing out your idea. Keep writing it until you kind of figure out what this idea means to you. Like when I come up with a story idea, I like to figure out what my logline is so that it's super clear and establishes everything quickly, but at the same time sort of figure out why it needs to exist, or like, let's say, the thematic statements I want to talk about. And when you start nailing your ideas to a more universal understanding, the more relatable it becomes. And of course, that increases chances of someone liking your idea and, having your idea potentially greenlit. Now, the next one I want to talk about is that when you pitch your idea, you sort of make an impression about yourself to the people that you're pitching to or the studio that you're pitching to. Now, I personally think just making your own personal project and, making that product by yourself kind of elevates who you are as an individual and showcases what kind of thing you can bring to the table. To those that you pitch to, you start being seen differently. You start being seen more than just another animator or another story artist or designer. You're now being seen as someone who has a vision. You're now seen as a creator with valid ideas. or a story worth telling. So, when I go out and pitch or when I make a personal project, for example, I showcase my strengths and my interests, but at the same time, I showcase my own drive and personality too. I showcase my tastes and what I gear towards to. And even if I don't sell my idea or my pitch, I made an impression that can also open other doors of opportunities. A studio might say, hey, this pitch is too similar to what we have in store, but it feels like you'd be a good fit to probably be a lead for this project. Or people know people, like if you made a good impression, they might go, hey, we don't know what to do with your idea, but we might know someone that might be a better fit. And I remember pitching it to someone, didn't work out with them, but they forwarded me to other producers that fit closer to my idea. So what I'm trying to say is a rejected pitch doesn't mean failure. You learn from the experience or you're recommended somewhere else. Now, the last one I want to talk about on why it's a good idea to pitch your idea to a studio or to certain individuals is that your idea may be revisited in the future. So let's say you pitch an idea at the wrong time, maybe with the wrong people. It gets rejected just because the studio is not looking for an idea that's similar to whatever you pitched. Or maybe it's just a circumstance that you can't control, like the climate of the industry or the studio. And that eventually just sinks away. But a few years later, it might be revisited by someone. Maybe the studio goes through a management shift, or maybe things have changed. Someone says, oh, hey, these certain ideas are pretty popular right now. And a few years ago, this guy pitched this idea that's very similar to that. And it might be revisited for another visit. And you know what? It's happened to a few friends of mine. They pitch something internally within a studio, and the studio says, hey, this is not something we're looking for. A few years later, anime gets popular, darker stories get popular, and suddenly the studio goes, let's reach out to those guys that pitched this idea way back, and now it's in development. So the truth is that you can make a pretty awesome pitch or a very quick and concise pitch that's easy to understand, sells the idea quickly, but for some reason, due to circumstances or due to the climate of the industry or the world, they decide, no, let's not move forward with it. But in the future, it might be picked back up. There's projects that get shelved and then revisited for further production, so it can happen. You know what, scratch that. There's one more thing I want to talk about before I wrap this video up. And one of the good reasons why it's a good idea to pitch is that as humans, we have the need to sort of express ourselves. Now, let's say you're developing an idea, you really love it, you're really passionate about it, you love the story, and you find really good reasons why it's worth telling that story. It becomes very soul relieving to sort of express what that story is about to other people. Like when I feel really passionate about a story and when I pitch it, I feel like I'm fulfilling a certain part about myself. Like I'm able to just express myself through the engine of a pitch where I summarize this story idea that I'm really passionate about. And I think the more you pitch it, the more you talk about it, and the more you express yourself, the more you have a better understanding of what you're trying to say with your thing. Because it's so chaotic to keep all that idea within you, and if you haven't really practiced, pitching it, it's harder to talk about it. There's something about it that's very therapeutic. The more you talk about it, the more you pitch it, the more you share it, the more you have a better understanding of what that project is. And when you have a better grasp of it, the stronger you feel about your ideas and about yourself. So you know what? Instead of rushing to pitch to studios right now, try pitching your ideas to people that you trust or your friends that you really value their notes. Try to figure out what doesn't make sense for them, and maybe they have some ideas on how to strengthen your story or your ideas, so it can become very symbiotic and collaborative. And having that reassurance makes you kind of see why your project is important to yourself and maybe to others. For some, maybe pitching to studios isn't the right thing. Maybe it's just the need to sort of express to other people about your ideas, about your stories, and gauge if there's value in it with the process of talking about it with other people. Sometimes it might just be that you might need. Next time, I'd like to talk about why you should not pitch your idea to studios, but for now, maybe I'll just wrap it up so you guys can think about this stuff. Anyways, that's all. Bye. Interested in learning hand-drawn animation or learning how to finish an animated shot from beginning to end? Have a look at the store where you'll find the complete Introduction to 2D Animation video course, tutorials, and other resources. Learn classical animation approaches, drawing, lectures, techniques, and other process videos. Visit the store through the link in the description below.